Right, there we go.
Recording in progress.
All right, presenters,
This
turn
is
your
a
camera on.
100-member Zoom call for all IB students right now. Huh?
You want to share your screen?
What?
What?
I can share my screen, so you gotta do it.
You can't share your
Okay,
screen?
You disable.
Student privileges. Yeah.
Wait, let me just
yeah, hold on. I
disable.
don't know where the file went for
跟你
the
咱们一起听啊，妈妈跟你一起听一下这个。
If you are not a speaker,
Alright, I'm
We
just
request
unmuting
everyone
people.
to mute, please.
No, it's okay. Don't worry.
Um,
I got it. Wait, what do you mean you can't
wait,
share
what
screen?
someone
I don't want to
left.
share my screen. Oh no, you got it. Oh,
Oh,
Elvin's. I'm
What?
this
viewing
is
it.
not it. This is the built-in whiteboard. This is not sharing my screen.
I'm viewing the whiteboard. You know, guys, I feel like an old man. I don't know how to use Zoom.
Oh my God. There's literally a share screen button. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you disabled it. Fine.
Alright, you should be able to share screen now.
Oh, cool. Thanks. Wait, hold up. Where's my presentation, bro? I had it right here. Oh, there we go.
Why there's so many?
Separate wander again. Great. Um, oh, cool. It's automatic. Slides. Okay, there we go. Should be here. Yes.
You guys get subtitles. How do I turn subtitles on? Does
I don't,
anybody know?
I'm not sure if there are subtitles.
You all see this? Yes?
Oh, yes, we do.
All right. Nice. I'll be myself.
Is Alice here?
Alice,
Hello.
turn your camera on.
I'm good,
Onavi,
thanks.
also turn your camera on. Okay.
Okay, shall we get started or shall we wait a bit?
So don't be late or else we leaving. Cause my date and I.
Okay, let's just get started now. Welcome everybody. This will be our final IB Buddies meeting. So essentially, this meeting, we're kind of gonna go over what's next for you guys, like big events, big projects, assignments, stuff like that. And that'll be like end of junior year and then also most of senior year. We'll go over some of the internal assessments, IB exams, and just overview of college admission. Okay. That's our agenda. Next slide, please. Okay, so from now to the end of junior year in the next few months, in block, you'll definitely have some more paper 2s and 3s as practice, as well as some group projects. And these kind of group projects are meant to kind of buff your grade and boost it. In English specifically, you'll have your HL essay in May, which is essentially a 1,500 word analytical essay, but your teacher will go over that later. In world languages, if you have any SL or HL languages that you'll be testing in this year, you will have IAs. And then for math, at the end of the year, you'll have a group practice IA. This is kind of prepping for your next year's IA, but it's a lot less stressful because you'll be doing it in a group. Then you'll have your TOK exhibition. You'll hopefully start your CAS project or at least plan it out. Then for your EE, you'll definitely have your EE topic advisor chosen, as well as you'll have an outline approved by the end of the school year, and then finals. So as you all know, this will be the last semester of grades that will go into your transcript for colleges. So it's really important to do good on your finals and to finish the year strong. Also, for your rec letters, it is really recommended to start thinking about which teachers you want rec letters from now and hopefully ask them by the end of this school year. Then later in the fall, when you're actually applying for colleges, you can double check with them, confirm that you actually have their letter of rec. Okay, so senior year, I think, yeah, okay. Senior year in September and most of fall, it will be pretty busy. you'll have your EE rough draft due near the end of September. And for bio, you'll have your IA research question proposal. Then in October, Kuhn, Thomas Kuhn, the author of The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, that's one of the major books you read in TOK. It's notorious for being hated because it's long and repetitive, but you'll get through it. And then you'll start your TOK essay. This essay is one of the harder essays you'll probably do in your high school career because it is less traditional. It's not really like a humanities essay and it takes a lot more time. Then your if you're in Math SL, that's when your IA will likely be due. And October is likely when FAFSA will come out, so you'll start filling that out. Then in November, if you're in Math HL, that's when your IA will be due. And that's when you'll get your English IO done. I'm sure many of you have had practice IOs this year, so that should be pretty smooth. Then HL Science IAs, you'll likely start those. And November is when all the early action, restrictive early action, and early decision applications will be due. So this is a really important deadline, as well as UW on the 15th and UCs on the 30th. So as you can see, with fall, the first few months, you'll have college essays you're writing, you'll have a bunch of different assignments and projects. So it's really important to plan out your schedule accordingly. Then in December, you'll kind of finish your TOK essay. That's when your restrictive early action and early decisions will come out. And then that is when your regular decisions will be due, as well as when your early actions will come out. And then you'll have first semester finals. So we are showing you guys this to not stress you out with all the assignments you have to do, but it's kind of for you to gauge how you should plan out your summer and your fall. So things like your EE, you can definitely get that done during the summer, at least most of it, to help lighten your workload. And also your college essays, it's highly recommended to start during the summer. It'll reduce a lot of stress for you. Okay, next slide. And then, okay, the next few months will be pretty easy, a lot more easy than the first few months. In February, you'll have your EE due, but you'll have most of your EE done already, hopefully, from your rough draft. Your CAS project, you will hopefully have it done or you'll be working on it, and your bio IA will be due. Most of your other IAs will also be due, your foreign language IOs, your Zello will be due, and senior interview. These are definitely less stressful, so you don't have to worry about it yet. And that's when your regular decisions will come out, so it will be a really stressful month. Then in April, your CAS will be basically done. That's when you'll likely visit some campuses for colleges. And in May, you'll have your IB exams. So April is kind of your last month to really relax before you kind of have to lock in for IB exams. Then you'll hopefully commit to a college in May. And in June, you'll just relax because you're done with the IB exams. You're basically done with school. And finals for non-IB classes, get those done, and then you'll graduate. So the last few months of senior year are a lot more chill. It's mostly the beginning of senior year that you'll still have to focus for. So if you think junior year will be the end of it, be prepared for senior year. You still have to focus a lot and work really hard in the beginning. Okay, so HL essay. This will come mostly in May. It'll be a few weeks long, and it's just like many of the previous English essays that you've done in the past. It'll be inquiry driven, and it's on one of the IB prescribed works. So it could be literary or non-literary that you've studied this year. I know many people do the Twilight Zone episodes, or some people do like some of the books that we've read. Your English teacher will probably guide you through this in May, and you only have a few weeks to write this essay, which is usually a lot shorter than the time frame we've gotten for many other essays. So it's really, really important to stay on track with the outline and rough draft deadlines to help make it easier for you. And this will probably be one of the last major essays you'll write this year, so stay motivated and finish strong. Your TOK exhibition. Okay, I don't know if you guys have started this yet, but it mostly comes at the end of the year, and it's different than a traditional humanities essay. Essentially, IB will give a list of prescribed questions that you'll choose to drive your expedition. How it works is you pick 3 real-life objects, which essentially act as evidence to answer your chosen question. So these objects could be like, oh, like this specific book from this specific library. Like, I don't know, it's Einstein's brain, something like that. You'll get a lot more details of this later on. Essentially, it's a 950-word essay, which will be divided between the 3 objects. And then you have an optional short intro you could include. Essentially, you're just explaining how these objects connect to your question, how it explains it. Your teacher will show you a lot of examples, so don't worry about it right now. And make sure you give yourself a lot of time to revisit and revise your work. Because you only get 300-ish words for each object, it's really important that your logic is making sense because you don't have that many words. You really need to be concise and get to your point.
你这本书不是做的小羊把脚举在上面的。
Oh, this is my slide. My bad. Okay, CAS project. So if you guys haven't started this yet, you probably should. It is kind of a chore to do, and it's something that you have to do for CAS, otherwise you get in trouble. So get this done early. I know that some people hadn't started it until like well into their senior year, and at that point it gets very stressful to do on top of everything else you have to handle. Like you just saw the timeline. There's a lot of things happening each month, a lot of deadlines, a lot of things that you should be expecting. So ideally start this as soon as possible. I think that CAS project for us was the IB Buddies thing, and we started that this year, but we were planning it since end of last year. So try to get that approved and get started at the end of your junior year. And then some ideas and examples, for example, IB Buddies, I think a group has done that every year starting from last year. There's an art exhibition that people who were interested in art did. That was super cool. They like hosted it at the library. I know like some of the math club people like hosted a math competition on their own. I have some friends who organize like a whole tutoring organization. Just things like this where you take some initiative and you organize something big as a group with some of your buddies. That's what essentially gets counted as a CAS project. It has to be something service. I think it has to be something service oriented, and it should ideally be incorporating. I think one of the criteria is that everyone has to contribute to some degree or to a pretty solid degree. So something collaborative that's service oriented. And you have to make sure you're constantly making these reflections and uploading evidence. That's why we're recording this meeting. It's so that you guys can watch it back if you need to, but then also that we can put it down as evidence because we have to. And this is probably the most important CAS activity you have. It needs to be well done. And I see the comment, someone asked if this is only for DIP. This is only if you're doing diploma, yes. If you're doing TOK, if you're doing CAS, CAS is one of the graduation requirements from IB DIP. So yes. So yeah, just make sure you're getting started on this and try to get this approved and ready to go by the end of this year. Okay, E, extended essay. Okay, do try to spend time on this throughout the year. It says do as we say, not as we do. I don't know who wrote that in parentheses, but it definitely applies to me. I didn't get my EE. I wrote the majority of my EE in the week it was due, and that was really, really stressful. So don't do what I did. Does not turn out well, and you probably won't end up scoring well. I don't think I'm gonna end up scoring that high, so do not do your EEs very late, and especially for science, make sure you have time to conduct your experiments. Otherwise, you might realize that, oh well, I have this flaw in terms of my experiments methodology. I should probably revise it. I should probably do this instead. I should be running the simulation in this way instead of this. And all of that is stuff that you should be realizing well before your actual EE is due, because then you can go back to your advisor and you can talk to them and collaborate and kind of get feedback. All of this is stuff that you should do if you're interested in research in the future and if you're interested in scoring high on the EE. It's just good practice and just get started early. Also choose a topic that interests you. It makes writing a lot easier. This is definitely true. Yeah, especially a topic that you have some kind of background knowledge in or some kind of experience in. That helps a lot of the time. You should also definitely use your summer to get most of your draft done, since it's due after the first. What? Oh, the draft is due after the first month of school. The final draft isn't due until February, the second week of February, but the draft is due after the first month of school. So use your summer, get most of it done, try to. Otherwise you will be busy with college apps. You're gonna keep pushing it off. So and it isn't as stressful as it seems, to be honest. I think IB isn't looking for you to, discover a new element. They're looking to see your critical thinking and how much you can follow like the criterias and all of that. So it's not too stressful. Just look through what you need to do for the EE, look through criteria, look through some examples, and then get started. Next slide. Oh, general advice. So I think I wrote this one. Don't procrastinate. I know it's very tempting to. I definitely procrastinated some aspects of my senior year in college applications and IAs and all of that. Um, I know it's really tempting to, but time manage well, otherwise you will end up sprinting instead of marathoning. This is a quote that we borrowed from our current TOK teacher, Miss Mainers. She loves to say this. Sprinting is, grinding all your assignments and studying for everything and finishing everything the night before, it's due. Marathoning is doing a bit each day so that it's easier for you. And something that I will say about this saying is that a lot of the time in senior year, especially if you get backlogged, it feels like you're constantly sprinting. So it's like you're basically breaking the 2 hours on the marathon at some point. But you do have to try to get a little bit done each day, and especially during the summer, try to get something done. Don't do too much though and overwork yourself. Don't try to take too many new things on and overestimate how much you can get done. That's very difficult. Take care of your mental health. I think this is super important. Friends, everybody has struggled with burnout at some point. You know, especially senior year, transitioning with college applications and everything like that. It gets very stressful. So take care of your mental health, remember to take care of yourself and frame things positively. So just in general, look at things with a positive light. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Second thing is don't compare yourself. I know during college applications, a lot of people like to compare themselves, oh, my stats are this, they do this, whatever. Don't try to do that. That doesn't help you write your essays and won't help you get into college. Last thing is don't tunnel vision. So end of the day, remember that college isn't the end of the story, right? High school isn't the end of the story. So don't tunnel vision too hard and end up prioritizing things that harm you over your mental health and physical health. So just keep that in mind and yours will be fine. I think and then the last one is one must imagine Sisyphus happy. For those who get the reference, this is a reference to Albert Camus and his Sisyphus essay. Essentially, life is about the experiences and what you make of it. Okay, that's it for general advice I had.
Okay, internal assessment. So most of you guys have already done many IAs this year, practice ones, but we're just going to quickly go over each of the groups. So for language and literature, that's your English IA or IO. Most of you guys have already done a practice one this year. It's just a 10-minute oral presentation where you're comparing two works, one literary, one non-literary, and you kind of connect it to a global issue. You have to think of it as like a verbal mini paper two and a paragraph on connecting to the global issue. This will be done mid-November to early December. You'll have time to schedule it with your teacher as well as some practice. And then language acquisition, this is essentially just your world language. It's another oral presentation / conversation with the teacher. You're speaking for 15 minutes on a picture and connecting it to a global issue. You have 10 minutes of prep. And essentially you're just describing the picture for 3 minutes. You're having conversation on the global issue for 4 minutes, and it's just a general conversation with your teacher for 5 minutes. This will be done in March. And for Spanish, Chinese, French, it's all pretty similar. Just describing picture, having a conversation on a global issue, and general conversation with your teacher.
Okay, and then for the group 3 classes, which are things like world religions or history, econ, things like that, they're all going to be around like 1,500 words, and the details vary by which class you're taking, but they kind of follow the same structure where you choose any topic within the curriculum to investigate, and then the sections break down into things like you choose what sources you're going to use for your information, and then you evaluate them. And then you talk about the results. Certain classes want you to analyze them, but other ones want you to just give the facts straight up. And then the last part will be like reflecting and evaluating on your research process. So like whether you found helpful sources, things like that, and whether you answered your question. And then the due date and kind of work time for this usually centers around February or March, but some of the work, like maybe choosing your question or finding initial sources, will be done earlier in the year. And then for group 4, which is the sciences, for all of them, they have a 12-page limit. And that sounds like a lot, but some of that space can also be taken up by like evidence like photos and things like that, or tables. And then so similarly, you can choose your area of investigation within any like topic underneath the curriculum, and you choose that. You find a research question that interests you, and then you conduct the experiment. And then the process kind of is spread out over a much longer period of time, because you need to do that, kind of refining your question and collecting data and troubleshooting things like that. So they're usually due around February or March, but you can start a lot earlier in the year, and your teacher will spread that out for you with like different checkpoint due dates and things like that.
Okay, before I move on, Helen, can you just go through the slides? Just go through the previous slides again. So I just want to ask you guys, like, obviously, I don't want to just talk at you guys for like a whole hour. It gets boring pretty fast. Any questions? Do you guys have any things you're wondering about? You know, more about Albert Camus, anything like that? So we covered, this general timeline. We covered general advice, but then like more specifically IAs in terms of the human sciences, sciences in general. Put any questions in the chat, and then yeah. If there are no questions in the chat in like 20 seconds, I'll just move on with the CS. Is EE on any subject you want? Yes, it is. I mean, it has to be on an IB subject, and could someone remind me, does it have to be on a
I think
subject
it
you're
has
being
to
taught?
be a class you've taken, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
You can also do like a world studies thing where you combine, it's an interdisciplinary subject, so you combine multiple subjects into one E.
Yeah, I think it's called like world studies. That's what Helen just said. It's like basically, well, isn't there something other than world studies too? World studies is like basically like analyzing, like you can analyze, for example, CS and like AI in the context of society. But isn't there something else, Helen?
I don't remember. I know, okay, yeah, all has to be class at Skyline, has to be class you're taking, world studies. I think that's it. I don't know. That's all
I think
remember.
if you want to mix subjects, it has to be a world studies essay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna put a link in the chat right now if you guys want to look through some EE subject areas. We will move on soon though if there are no more questions, so don't spend too long on that site and then get distracted.
Yeah, actually, I just want to say this. If you are someone who's not in IB right now, it's like a 9th or 10th grader, or like you're a parent here, and you don't know the stuff that we're talking about. So there's like a lot of resources online. IB website is a pretty good place. There should have been like a meeting from Skyline in February where there was the introduction to like IB, and there's a lot of information there, so go check that out. And if you really can't find the information that you want to find, you can ask us as well, right? Because we don't want to go over all the concepts, because like this project is targeted towards junior school, already have like lots of experience, so we don't want to like waste their time, right? Thank you.
Yes, true. Any other questions? The EE question is a good question. Yeah, and just generally, like your IAs are gonna get introduced by your teachers and everything like that. So just pay attention and don't sleep in that one period where they actually introduce it. Otherwise, you will have some trouble and have to do some research. Okay, if there are no other questions, then I will move on to IAs in CS. Okay, so this one is pretty time consuming. I personally believe it's one of the more time consuming ones, one of the more difficult ones. So essentially you have to build a software product with documentation. So it's usually some kind of website or mobile app. I know that one of my friends is doing a mobile app. I did a website this year for HL and also last year for SL. And the required elements are essentially you have to go through the whole process of developing a fully fleshed out product. So if you have to find a client to make the product for, and then an advisor to help you make the product, so someone with experience in the technology field, you have to create a plan after meeting with your client, after meeting with your advisor. Like you say, for example, oh, your client tells you, oh, I want an app to count how many times my dog farts, and then your advisor is like, oh, well, you can use Firebase for that. So you basically go and make a plan for how you're gonna code that app. Yeah, you want to make like flowcharts, diagrams, UI flows, everything like that. And then you make the product itself. And throughout the process, you periodically meet with your client and your advisor for feedback. So you say, well, does this button, is it obvious enough? Where you press like, you increment once, is it obvious? And your client goes, no, I'm blind, I can't see it. So then you like make all this like little adjustments. And essentially you have to record transcripts for all these meetings. And then you also have to record all the tasks that you did basically through a timeline. So you can imagine that this is a whole process. To be honest, some people don't follow through with the whole process. Especially if you procrastinate until the last day, you're not going to be able to do this whole process. It will be very stressful for you. You're going to miss sleep and school if you're going to procrastinate that much. But if you do it properly, it shouldn't be that stressful. And you should come out with essentially a pretty nice product that demonstrates your coding skills and also your just development skills, right? Because this prepares you for the real world if you want to become a software engineer. And it also is required that you make a video that demonstrates how the product works essentially. You have to be able to show that it does work. It's not just, you threw together a bunch of Photoshop pictures and you pretended you coded something. You also have to submit your code at the end. So, and then at the very end, you reflect and you evaluate based on your client advisor feedback. You say, well, I made the button correctly here, but then I didn't get to play the sound here. So I failed here, I succeeded here. You do all of that stuff. IB's all about reflection. So you have to reflect on how good you are at coding too, I suppose. And yeah, this is, I believe, February through March. That's the timeline that we had this year. It might change for you guys depending on the teacher, but yeah. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on if no questions about the CSA. Okay. So mathematics. This one's pretty interesting. You basically do a written research paper on math. You have to choose a topic on, where math can be applied in the real world, and you have to have a personal connection to it. You just can't go online and search up like IB math topic generator and you click enter and you just like find something completely random. You won't get a high score doing that. And something to note about all these IAs is that the score does get put into the grade book. So if you don't want to get rescinded and you actually want to graduate, you probably should, get a passing score, get a decent score on these IAs. So yeah, you've conducted an investigation using math that you've learned in the class. So it can't be like, using basic addition. It can't be like, well, how can math be applied to count sheep while I'm trying to fall asleep? That's just addition, right? You're not going to get any points in the math complexity aspect. There is that aspect for the criteria. This is done October to November, and I guess some advice that I have for this is just like, don't pick a topic that's too hard. Pick a topic you're interested in. I know someone who applied law and probability to law and how trials are conducted and all of that stuff. I personally did something related to robotics and physics within robotics, stuff like that. So find something that you're interested in and something you can find a personal connection to. That's how you're going to make this easier for yourself.
Okay, group 6 is the arts, and these IA stuff are very specific to which class you're taking. And so for theater, for example, there are two different components to your IAs. The first one is the production proposal IA, and this one is to kind of early winter, like late fall time. And essentially you can pick any play you want and you use the techniques that you've learned in class, like lighting or blocking, and you apply this to any production that you choose, and you kind of justify your choices as the essentially director of that play, and so you kind of you get to choose all the production elements and things like that. And so that's the written one, and then later on in the year you have like the hands-on one where around like we started kind of February, and then it's due at the end of March, and it's the collaborative project. So with a group you decide on an entire play, so you come up with the plot, the storyline, the script, everything like that, and then you also get to work on design choices, and it all has to be original and everyone in your group must act. And then for IB Art, essentially the entire class kind of builds up your eye, and you are working on different pieces throughout the year to build up your IB portfolio, and that is what counts as your Group 6 IA. I can do the next slide and then we can look at the questions if we have any.
Yeah, I think Helen also answered a question in the chat. For the math IAs, SL and HL are similar, except HL is more complex in its math aspect.
All right, and then for general advice, the biggest thing is to start early and make sure you don't procrastinate. I know we've talked about that before, but your teachers will give you the right amount of time that is like needed and what is required for that IA. So they're going to start you with looking at research questions or looking at topics at the right time frame and as early in the year as you will need it. So you want to make sure that you stick to any deadlines. Like some teachers will set up smaller deadlines in between steps, like things for like finding like the right sources or evaluating your data at a certain time, and this will help make sure that you are on track to submit a fully completed IA at the due date. If you wait too long, you might miss certain steps or you might not do as thorough of a job as you might have done. So yeah, looking at the due dates and smaller checkpoints is really important. And then you also want to look for resources, but we caution you to stay looking at these resources on things like Canvas or your teacher's like website if they have one, because a lot of times websites that are online might not be accurate with the details for a certain thing.
intro 来 compare it's
Sorry, was that a question?
No, I'll just keep going.
Okay. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you're looking at the resources that your teacher posted instead of things online. So they'll post things like rubrics or checklists to make sure that you are getting exactly what your teacher is looking for. That way you're fulfilling all of their expectations and you're not kind of falling into there might be some like weird information out there that's kind of misleading you or misinforming you. And then your teacher might also give you maybe like a Google Drive or some examples of past papers that have scored well, or they might like provide you with a range of papers that have different scores, and you want to make sure you're looking at those again and not random things online, because detailed IB information isn't usually supposed to be posted online, so they try to keep the actual stuff more private and protected. Yeah, and so you want to make sure that you're using those as well as any feedback that they give you at the smaller checkpoints for smaller sections.
Yeah, listen to your teachers, guys. Don't shrug them off, especially for IAs. I think Skyline has very solid IB teachers. IB does this thing where they like, regrade your paper if your teacher didn't do it well enough. I believe a lot of teachers at Skyline grade very well to the IB criterias. So listen to them, get feedback from them, don't shrug them off.
All right, so for IB exams, you can find the schedule to all the IB exams in that link. Helen, do you want to copy that into the chat whenever you can?
Yeah.
And then yeah, so you can copy that in sometime. And then once you guys find your days, find your testing days and plan accordingly. If you're in IB Dip, you're gonna have a lot of exams in senior year, and you want to make sure that you don't have any conflicts on those days because they're sort of the culmination of everything you did for IB. And then I think if you're taking Spanish SL this year, a lot of people last year, that was the only IB exam they took in junior year. So if that's you, then just make sure you know when that is and then schedule and study accordingly. And now the general format, depending on what class it is going to be paper 1 first, paper 2, and then paper 3. It depends on the course. Obviously, some courses only have a paper 1 or a paper 2, and sometimes the order is changed. But usually it goes 1, 2, 3. And also remember that these are curved a lot. I'm pretty sure, especially for IB math, you can get like a pretty low percentage of the questions and still get a really high score. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think an 80% might be a 7. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what that is. So a lot of these tests, they're curved a lot and you don't have to get all the questions right to get a high score.
I think it's around 70-something% for most classes. Physics
Yeah, it
goes
depends on the
like
class.
60-something, but do be aware that this is really low, not because IB is nice, but it's because the tests are really, really, really hard. Like if you thought AP tests are hard, I'm sorry, it gets harder. Especially for HL tests. And I think the percentage of people getting sevens never goes above double digits, as far as I know. So, I mean, you only need a 4 to pass, so that's a good thing. But like, don't be like, oh, the curve is easy, I'm gonna be fine. No, you still gotta study.
Next slide. Okay, and these are the curves. So the subject is math, and this is HL. So these are all the different things and assessments and IAs that will go into your final grade. So you can see that on the left here is the IB grade, so 1 through 7, and then it says from the number of marks that you get, and then for paper 1 through paper 2, I believe it's percentage, I think it looks like. So the exploration, if you get from 0 to 2 marks, then it's grade of 1, 3 to 5 is a 2, all the way up to 17 to 20 is a 7. And then paper 1, it's 14 to 26 is a 2, 0 to 13 is a 1, all the way up to 76 to 100 is a 7. So like I said earlier, it's actually pretty low, but it is very difficult, and I think very small number of people actually get a 7 on this. And then paper 3, it's another test, and I think this looks like this goes by marks since it only goes up to 50. So 34 to 50 marks is a 7, and then the rest of the scale sort of follows accordingly. Paper 2, again, it looks like percentage, and 77% is a 7, all the way down to 0 to 14% for a 1. And then the final, this would, I think, be your final IB score is 0 to 12 is a 1, and then 75% to 100 is a 7. So this is just for math. I believe there are different scales for the other subjects, so you guys can go on the IB website and sort of find the grading scale for specific tests that you're taking. But this is what it looks like for math. Oh, and yes, since we're on free Zoom, the meeting will end in a minute. And what we're planning on doing is starting a separate meeting. So in case this meeting ends unexpectedly, just look in the Discord. We'll be sending out a link to a new meeting to sort of continue where we left off.
Yeah,
And,
Alice, do you want to do that right now, actually, so that we don't have to waste that much time?
Actually, yeah, let's just like make everyone leave right now so we don't have to like run out of time. I think this is a good spot.
Yeah, unless Vincent can rush through this in under a minute. I don't want to make him though. So
yeah, sure.
yeah, okay. So
Let's,
who wants to host next? Alice, Vincent, one of you.
I can host actually because I'm doing the screen recording, remember? So
Sounds
okay.
good.
That
All right.
sounds good. Yep.
All right, we're gonna post the new link in the announcements. Everybody join up if you want to listen to college advice, because that's after this. So
Yeah. All right. See you guys.